What's up everybody, and welcome to another edition of AGR's Pop Culture Reviews. And hopefully you're not one of those unlucky few that got stuck in an airport terminal for the past couple of days, because evidently we're not letting people in the country anymore. You see, this is what happens when you half-ass things, and maybe you should check with some people that are kind of like experts before you roll things out that might be a little more complicated than you anticipated. Because whether you're aware of it or not, the ramifications of your actions carry a lot of weight and change the lives of thousands of people. And as you can see, the fallout from those actions are already taking shape. Okay, having gotten that out of the way, Fallout fans, rejoice, because today I have something extra special for you, and something I've been anticipating for a very long time. Today we're going to be taking a look at Threezero's 1/6 scale T-45 power armor from Fallout 4. Let's take a closer look. Guys, it really goes without saying, but Bethesda Studios has brought us some of the best that the gaming industry has to offer, and it really redefined the Western RPG. If you're anything like me, you've spent hundreds of hours playing games like The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, and especially Fallout 4, which is definitely one of my favorites. And what we have here is the perfect recreation of the now iconic T-45 power armor. Now, honestly guys, this is actually two figures in one. And as you can see, I currently have him displayed without the armor, revealing the inner workings. The cool thing about this figure is that it's extremely detailed underneath, and in many ways it was kind of a shame for me to put the armor on, so I wanted to show you what it looked like. The head sculpt here is amazing, and even though it's a little bit generic, I think it's a perfect recreation of what they show in the game. And you want it to be generic because you don't want it to be so specific like it is in the game. You want to cater it to however you want. Overall, the sculpt is fantastic and I like the way it looks. But most importantly is the detail. As you can see, there is the suit that you wear, the Fallout suit, and basically you see all the servos and just the inner workings of the T-45 power armor, which is extremely cool and really detailed. What I like about it as well is definitely the weathering. Things are rusted, things are corrosive looking. It's just an amazing amount of detail and well worth it in my opinion. Now, what I really like about this figure is definitely the mixed media. There's a lot of it going on here. Things that should be rubbery are rubbery. There are rubber stoppers there, especially for the hoses, and you can really see the level of detail and why it took so long for this figure to come out. I'm glad for the extra time to incubate to make sure that this figure was perfect. The legs are very impressive as well, and as you can see, just like in the game, you don't fully fit into this armor basically. You are actually a little bit smaller, and it really shows, especially in the feet. So you're kind of elevated a little bit, and I'm glad that they went with that level of detail. I think one of the most impressive things about this figure as well is definitely in his hands. Now, one of the things I like about it is that they just didn't make it cheap. They actually made each individual digit articulate, so it's a lot easier to grasp things, which is really cool. I actually like when they do this in the Iron Man figures, where they don't just have it static. I love the fact that these individual digits are fully articulated. It's just one of those things that add to the realism. And because it's armor, it really is in line with this figure. Now, I'm going to keep it real with you guys. When I initially took this figure out of the packaging, which is very impressive by the way, it reminded me a lot of the quarter scale Hot Toys figures. I was really intimidated by this figure because it has so many moving parts. That is, of course, until I found out that some of these parts and pieces that you add to the armor are fully magnetic, which is freaking awesome. I thought it was going to be a pain in the ass to put all these parts on, but no. What Threezero did here was something completely amazing. I'm so glad they did this, and I know that this figure is very expensive, but I see where it went. You can just put these little armor parts on, and they're completely magnetic. It's freaking awesome. I also have to say, I'm really impressed with Threezero's quality here. Now, they didn't use cheap little magnets. I mean, when these things stick on, they stick on. I even tried to wiggle the figure around to see if it would fall off. Nope. They stayed completely sturdy, and you gotta give props to Threezero for that. Thank you guys for not going cheap on the magnets. Now guys, don't get me wrong though. There are a few parts that you have to add to this piece that are not magnetic, but they're not a pain in the ass either. They're not like snap type model kits. And they actually are very fluid and they fit very flush, which is something that I really like. And all you gotta do is separate them. And I always caution people that when you're separating parts to make sure that you do it carefully. But if you do add a little bit of pressure, it's not going to snap it because it's more of a rubbery type of thing. I don't know how quite to explain it, but it does have some kind of elasticity, so you don't have to worry about breaking the piece so much. But still, nevertheless, guys, just be a little bit careful. Now, there are a lot of pieces, guys, and initially I said I was pretty intimidated by them, but this is not going to be an all-day event. Fortunately, they fit very well. You don't have to fight with them. They're very malleable, and before you know it, you're going to have the armor complete how you like it. Now, there's a lot of versatility here in terms of how you want to display it. You can have one side fully armored up and then the other side not so fully armored. I mean, it all depends on what you want to do. This figure is excellent in that it's completely modularized, so you can add and remove certain parts of the suit to your customized liking. Now, there's not too many things in terms of accessories here, but the one that it does come with is incredible, which is that iconic pulse rifle. Now, this thing is just amazing. It looks like it was ripped right out of the game. I love the green, especially the yellow cords, and that basically power canister that you have there. I mean, this thing is just amazing. I think it's probably one of the most impressive rifles that I've seen on a figure, and it's definitely worth it. I see all the level of detail that they put into this pulse rifle. Just looks great with the figure. Now, as I mentioned before, this figure is actually two figures in one, and basically because you have the option of using the human head without any of the armor, and then you have the other option of using the helmet fully armored, which is fantastic. One of the great things about this piece is it's very similar to the armored Batman in that you have the whited out eyes and the lamp above its forehead, which actually light up, which is completely amazing, and I can't wait to test it out. Overall, the armor looks amazing. There's enough weathering there. They just did an excellent job with this figure. And you know what? Regardless of whether or not you want to put it with or without the armor, this figure has a commanding presence. Now, this figure does come with a few accessories, and I like to categorize them as alternate accessories because these are mainly used for when you want to display your figure without all the armor. Now, you have two additional canisters, and you also have a fuel cell that is completely magnetic, so you can plug it right into the back of the figure, which is cool, and two additional rubber hoses. Overall, it's really cool, and I like the fact that they give you both options and they give you these additional accessories for more detail. Now, I do have two very big gripes with this figure, and if you'll notice, I didn't review a stand. Why? Because Threezero didn't make a stand, which I find reprehensible at this price point. This figure comes in at over $400 shipped, and there's no reason we shouldn't get a stand for that amount of money. The other major problem I have with it is that at times it can feel a little bit cheap because there's absolutely no diecast in this figure, and that's another problem. At this price point, there should have been some part of this figure that should have been diecast. But other than that, I guess you have to compromise. I only imagine what price point this figure would have been if they would have used diecast metal. Now, because of those two major gripes, it's really hard for me to put this over as a holy grail piece, but I'm still gonna put it over just barely, and mostly because of the popularity of this figure. Right now, it's essentially sold out everywhere that I've looked for it, and unfortunately, it's been gobbled up by the secondary market. And for that reason, I really gotta thank the folks over at Threezero and Sideshow Collectibles for sending this wonderful piece over for review. Alright everybody, so that's my official review on Threezero's 1/6 scale version of the T-45 power armor from Fallout 4. As always, I thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next AGR's Pop Culture Reviews. I will say this about our beloved president: when he screws up, man, he screws up big time. I do have a little bit of advice though. You might want to watch more anime in the Oval Office. I might direct your attention to a little one called Attack on Titan, and ask those characters if anything was resolved by building a giant wall. See how that worked out for them.